Hi everyone. We'll be waiting 2 to 3 minutes before starting the webinar to accommodate for the rest of the attendees who are in the middle of connecting. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Valentin Kolika and I will be your host for today. Thank you for your participation and just a few reminders before starting with the webinar. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. And all the links that I'll be referencing, they're already referenced here and copied and pasted, in fact, to the IM window. Closed captions are available during the live broadcast, and you can enable it by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. During this time, please feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by simply clicking on the Ask a Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously. You can do that by checking the box right below where you enter it. Now, we often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event, if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, that's also a great place to ask a question. We'd love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. And while you're there, please join our community by visiting aka.ms/security community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews, which you can sign up for at aka.ms/security private preview. And while there, you can request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Safina Lepakshi and Innocent Wafula will guide us through enhancing IoT security and visibility using Azure Defender as well as Azure Sentinel. Safina is a senior program manager on our Azure Security Center team, and Innocent is also a program manager on our Azure Sentinel team. And without further ado, I will turn it over to them. Safina and Innocent, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Val.
We lost you for a bit. Maybe you unmuted yourself accidentally or muted yourself accidentally. Okay, let me get Safina's attention because I think she's having some. Safina, can you? Okay, now we can hear you.
Sorry about that. And I was saying thank you so much for all the introduction, and thank you so much everyone for joining us today. It's great to be here this beautiful morning. I'm here to talk to you about how you can enhance IoT security and visibility with Azure Defender and Sentinel. And this will be the agenda for today. We are going to start by learning about what IT and OT security is to start with, and then we will talk about the differences between them. Plus, we are going to walk through the challenges that we have observed at our customers all the way. And then we will dive into how Azure Security Center for Azure Defender for IoT helps overcome these challenges. And then we'll move on discussing about how you can use Azure Sentinel by my colleague Innocent. So let's kick it off. And so before I start, okay. Before I start talking about the differences, I want to cover talking about what exactly is IT and OT so that we are all on the same page. IT is your informational technology. Like in short, it deals with the information. It manages the flow of digital information. And data is really a good example to it. When it comes to the operational technology, and this is the way you manage the operation of your physical processes and the machineries that is used to carry them out. Now, if I have to talk about security of IT and IT security and the OT security, it comes to no surprise that for IT security, the priority number one is your data confidentiality and privacy, which is your classic security stuff. And in IT security, we have standard protocols and devices and very high level of connectivity. So everything is connected via cable, via wireless, all of them are interconnected with each other. Everything can talk to each other, and that's how IT systems operate, right? So talking about the OT security, it's a bit different from the classic IT security. It is an operational network with totally different security perspective. Here, it's all about safety and availability. So what is important in the OT security is they have to make sure that their systems are up and running and they are safe. And availability is a huge part of a deal for OT network because every customer that produces something, which could be water, energy, food, oil, for that matter, right? Any other goods that they produce somehow comes under the OT side of it. And their main goal, if you think of it, is to make sure that the production is up and running, and they want to make sure that they produce what they want and the quantity that they want. So they need to make sure that the network, once it's running, it should run in the safely manner. And every time, if you think of it, if there is nothing is produced because of a downtime or because of some service being unavailable, it'll eventually cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So say, for example, if they are into producing drugs, where COVID is an example, right? If they're producing a COVID drug where millions of people are affected, right? That's the worst case scenario, right? So having said that, if there is something wrong to these devices, then it will directly impact the business itself. So it could cause serious implications to those networks because of it could be a financial or it could be the loss caused due to the IP theft or the safety, depending on whichever sector you're working on. So on the screen here are some of the examples of attackers compromising unmanaged IT and OT devices, where they are trying to access to the corporate networks in one way or the other. And I can give you an example at this point, of what we have encountered in the past. Recently, last year, I'm sure many of you might have heard about this through our Microsoft Threat Intelligence reports. Microsoft reported it had discovered a campaign compromising popular IoT devices across multiple customer locations, right? I'm sure many of you have heard about it. Let me take you to that news article. So I have it open for the sake of the time. So this is a news article that talks about it. So if you read about this attack and the campaign, right? So the attackers were basically exploiting some vulnerabilities to deploy their malware. And the investigation uncovered that the bad actor was trying to gain initial access to the corporate networks, and they eventually ran a TCP dump in order to sniff the network traffic on the local subnets. And we have also seen that they were trying to enumerate administrator groups to do the further exploitation. Remember, we keep advising you to reduce your administrative group members count. Yes. I'm sure many of you are nodding your head now, because that's the fact, right? Many of the customers that I have worked with has so many administrators that we always struggle to remove. In this case, especially, we were able to identify and block these attacks at early stages. We released more information about this particular attack in our Black Hat Security conference. And if you're interested to know more about it, make sure you visit the recordings. That was just one example. We have many examples like these of ransomware shutdowns that has been caused for the industries, which eventually caused downtime and which eventually led to hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. And if you think of it, all of these three are very important factors. And no doubt these are too critical for any organization to address these changes. And more organizations are starting to feel that we need to address these challenges in the long run. And that's where our Azure Defender for IoT comes into the picture. So this is an architecture that talks about how Azure Defender for IoT works. This is a Microsoft approach for securing those networks. In the overall architecture, you will see that we are covering two major areas, one that runs on-premise and one that runs on Azure. The one that runs on-premise, either it's on the devices or on the network, right? We have divided into two categories. It could be your unmanaged devices or managed devices. We have an approach to take care of the challenges that we discussed in the earlier slide, be it an unmanaged or unmanaged devices. Now, first, I want to talk about the unmanaged devices. So these are your older devices, the ones that you cannot put an agent on them. Let's say, for example, it's a factory that you're producing drugs and you really don't want to put an agent or even update them because you don't want it to cause it downtime, right? You don't want to take any risk. So how do you protect those devices, right? This is why Microsoft acquired a company called CyberX. I'm sure many of you have know about this. So we are focusing on agentless solution for OT networks. So what we are doing is we are connecting into the network switch using a span port, and we are just listening to the network traffic running over the wire. And we can analyze and understand what's happening in the network. And then we provide all the inventory like the vulnerability assessment, continuous monitoring for even those networks in those proprietary protocols like Rockwell, Siemens, Hydroelectric are just some examples. Right. So if you look at it, we are not making any changes in the network. We are not changing the devices, but still we can provide security for those networks. And how does this really work? We will look at it in the next slide very briefly. Now, we also have Azure Defender for IoT on-premise manager. So let's imagine you have multiple sensors and you want to manage those in an on-prem solution. And say if you're, for example, a very nuclear facility and who don't have access to the internet, and you need to provide some sort of solution to those networks, so you can have on-prem manager on those networks in order to manage it further. Now, talking about managed devices, this is your Azure Security Center for IoT. This solution has been there for a while. We provide a security module for you, which is our lightweight agent. And this agent can be installed on any of the IoT devices that you want to monitor and keep it safe. Right. So if you're using one of the Microsoft IoT devices, which I will also cover in the upcoming slides, you will have a pre-built agent running in it straight out of the box that you can take advantage of from the beginning itself. Now, both of these unmanaged and managed devices will be working towards protecting your IoT hub or any of the IoT device that you want to connect to in order to detect the vulnerabilities if there are any in those devices. Now, talking about what runs on Azure, we have Azure Defender for IoT, which is providing you a unified view for the unmanaged and managed IoT and OT security. It's providing you inventory, vulnerability assessment, and continuous threat monitoring. That's the piece that stays on Azure that you can optionally connect from the unmanaged device to Azure to make take the most benefit out of it. Now, the other piece that runs on Azure is our Azure Sentinel. It's our SIEM software. So where you can push the alerts from your Azure Defender for IoT, and you can further use it to investigate. Okay, so this is about the Azure Defender for IoT architecture and how Microsoft deals with securing those devices. Now, you might be wondering how the unmanaged devices are working in order to protect the OT environment. So this is a small architecture to describe the same. So what we do is we provide some sort of a sensor, which could be for your virtual or physical appliance, doesn't matter, based on your preference, based on your customer preference. So we collect the security data passively by leveraging the span port or the network tab. And once the data is gathered, we do a deep packet inspection on your IoT and OT network traffic. And then we analyze exactly what's happening over the wire. And we couple it with behavioral analytics. So if you think of it, we are trying to build a baseline of what's allowed and what's not allowed in your network with the help of behavioral analytics, and then alerting on what's happening there in the network. And we have Azure Defender for IoT for on-prem and cloud connected. So we again provide asset inventory because it's really important for you to know what you have in your IoT devices and whatnot, right? And because many of the customers huge customers don't really know what IoT devices they're using and so on. So asset inventory is the important part that we provide along with the vulnerabilities and threats from those analysis that we do in the start. And later you could push these alerts to Azure Sentinel in order to do more investigation. Along with all of these, the most important point, and one of the most important points I want to mention, is we integrate out of the box with the third-party tools like Splunk, ServiceNow, and IBM QR Radar. So if you think of this architecture, it has zero impact on your network and network devices because of the non-invasive nature, actually, right? So because this is super critical for any IoT, any OT environments, because our customers really don't want to inject any packets into their sensitive networks. They don't want to install any agent as such, which is why we have this kind of a setup. Right. And this is the unmanaged side of the house, the CyberX side of the house. In our session today, I'll be focusing more on the managed side of the house specifically, but I just wanted to provide an overview because this is our latest release in early October. And there is a follow-up session that's coming up where we are covering unmanaged devices protection, the CyberX piece that's coming up in the upcoming months. Make sure you watch our schedule of webinars if you're interested to attend that session. Okay. Moving on to the managed devices. This is a solution that has been there for quite some time. This is the agent-based solution. This is designed to work for a constrained IoT environment. And the agent is highly customizable if you have already worked on it. I'm sure you can realize that, right? We have two types of agents that we provide, built-in and enhanced mode. In the built-in mode, what you do is you just turn on the security option in your IoT Hub. It's just one click of a button, and then you can take advantage of the device visibility and unmanaged security. And if you're using one of those Azure IoT devices, the security module is embedded within it. Like, for example, if you're using Azure RTOS, real-time operating system, or Sphere or IoT Edge devices, then the security module will come built in into those devices so that you can take value of the Defender for IoT straight out of the box. And in the enhanced mode, along with enabling the security option in your IoT Hub, you will be installing the Defender for IoT agents, device agents as well on your devices. I'll show you a demo in a while where I have installed the agents, and I'll show you how Azure Security Center is able to collect and aggregate and analyze the raw security events from my devices, and it's able to provide the recommendations and the alerts that has arrived at my device. So what we do is we are using threat intelligence in order to analyze the behavior of your environment, of your devices, and then provide, we have built-in recommendations that you can disable or enable. I'll show you that in a demo in a while. And if there are any misconfigurations found in your devices, like say, for example, if you have open ports on device, or there are issues with IP filter rules and so on, right? There are list of recommendations that Defender for IoT provides. Make sure you check the Azure docs if you're interested to know about it. So we provide the recommendations, and then which will directly affect your Azure Security Center Secure Score, and it'll directly impact the security posture of your environment. Okay, and furthermore, you can move these alerts or recommendations it can be returned to the log analytics workspace, and I'll show you in a while how you can enable that. Talking about custom alerts, we have set of alerts that we evaluate your devices on, but you know your IoT devices best. So for the customers who fully understand the device's expected behavior, you can utilize our custom alerts in order to monitor the devices further. And the most important point I want to highlight is we keep on adding more and more features, more and more capabilities in the managed side of it. So watch out for the same. So this is the end-to-end. This diagram essentially represents an IoT solution built around the hub. So if you think of it, the hub itself is a very sophisticated service that you have. So if you didn't configure it correctly, or if you didn't monitor it correctly, then it can be hacked very easily. And so along with protecting the IoT hub itself, it's just not enough to protect the IoT hub itself, because no matter how much of your IoT devices are secure, if you're not securing the entire solution, and if you're not securing where your data goes from devices to the edge, to the hub, or to your solution itself, then the solution is not secure. So that's where our Azure Azure Defender for IoT comes into the picture. We need to have an end-to-end solution, is what we heard from the customers, and we have Defender for IoT taking care of it. So it provides you end-to-end solution from device to edge to IoT hub, and it gives you visibility into the security posture, and it gives you the state of the IoT solution all in one single pane of a glass, and provides you the information about your security posture, and it blocks compromised devices within the IoT hub, and it monitors the health of your devices, it finds the threats, and you will also have an option to integrate it with Azure Sentinel. So this is our end-to-end solution. Now, I want to take you to the Azure portal. Okay. So I have an IoT hub that is already configured, but I have an IoT hub, dummy IoT hub that I created just so that I can demo the onboarding experience for you. So this is my IoT hub that I haven't enabled Security Center for IoT. Now, if I click on the overview section of it under security, you will see that it's just one click of a button in order to enable the security for your IoT solution. So, and if you look more here, like every onboarding screen, you will see videos that's explaining what Azure Security Center or Azure Defender for IoT is working on and how it helps your secure your organization. And there are some really important links. And one link that I want to highlight is the zero integration one that talks about how you can automatically integrate with your log analytics workspace and how you will be charged and so on. So to enable Security Center for IoT in this IoT Hub, I'll go ahead and click on Secure Your IoT Hub. Once I do that, you will see the message here that the onboarding is succeeded. Please refresh to take the changes in effect. So the moment I refresh the screen or the window, I should be able to see the Defender for IoT already enabled in my IoT Hub. Now, from this moment onwards, the IoT Hub is going to scan my devices that I have linked to the IoT Hub, and it will give me real-time monitoring recommendations and alerts for those devices. Since to respect the time, I'm going to go to one of my IoT Hub that I have pre-configured. Now, going back to the security section, I have already pre-configured my IoT Hub and simulated some alerts for the sake of time. Before I talk about this, so the solution that I have in my demo is I have a VM. So this is my VM that has IoT Edge enabled. This is an IoT Edge enabled VM. This is acting as my IoT Edge. Now, I'm just gonna copy this IP addresses for some time. Okay, now going back to my IoT Hub device, I have already connected my IoT Edge device to the IoT Hub. Okay, once this loads, this will show me what are the agents that I have installed on this. So as you notice, I have Azure IoT Security Agent. This is the agent that I installed in the enhanced mode, and I configured the settings based on my need. And I have my IoT Edge already connected to this particular IoT Hub. Now, talking about the security section in the IoT Hub, the pane is divided into two parts. One is the threat prevention and the threat detection part. In the threat prevention part, here you will see the device recommendations and the solution recommendations of your entire IoT Hub solution. So, Defender for IoT validates against your environment and your devices against hundreds of rules and policies that we have built in, which will be checked and you will be able to see the overall security posture of your IoT hub, storage, compute, and so on, depending on whatever you have connected in your subscription. Now, talking about the threat detection piece of it, this is your security alerts view that monitors real-time events, and these are the events that's collected, that are not only for your IoT devices itself, but for your entire solution itself. Remember, I said we need to make sure that we protect the entire solution. So this is taking care of it. Okay. Now, I want to take you to the settings here for a second. So we have in the settings page, we have number of desired configurations that we can make. Let's start with the data collection. Here is the place where I can push my raw security data recommendations and custom alerts to a specific desired workspace that I want to for further investigation if I want to query the logs. And when I click on the recommendations configurations, here you will see the number of recommendations, the policies that we are evaluating your devices against. So if you think there is a specific policy or recommendation that's not valid for your environment, you have an option to click on the name of it and disable it. Moving back, so talking about the monitored resources. And if you remember, I said we are looking at the IoT solution as a whole and not just specifically the devices or the IoT hub itself. So right as you onboard your Defender for IoT, the IoT hub and the subscription of your hub is already there by default here. I mean, anything that's connected to your IoT hub, you'll be able to see it right here. But if you would like to enrich your solution by adding more subscriptions or with more resources, you can do that very easily by clicking on Edit and adding more subscriptions, right? And adding the resource groups that you want to monitor, right? And you click on Apply. And in a fraction of seconds, it will be added, and this will be monitored against your solution. Right. So this kind of gives you a lot of flexibility, because sometimes some companies create a resource group for development, for staging, for production, right? So as soon as you choose the resource group here, you are ending up adding more resources. If you end up adding up more resources in future, that will automatically be part of your entire IoT solution. Now, I want to talk about the custom alerts. So there are some alerts already that Azure Defender for IoT monitors your devices against. But like I said, you know your device best. So if you think that there is a specific alert that I want to monitor, I have an option to either click on default, or I could create a device security group very easily, right? Like I have created one here. So I could click on this device security group and add an alert type right here, depending on whatever I want to monitor. Right. Say, for example, number of failed logins is not allowed range. And then I can give the minimum threshold, and I can give the maximum threshold, and I can set the window time size. So at this time size, if there is more than this logins that you find, then report it. So this is an alert. I've saved it. Now, when I go to the recommendations section, the security alert section, you'll be able to see your custom alerts right here, appended with the custom alerts tag here, right? So this is a recommendation, an alert that I already had configured. And as you see, my IoT Edge was attacked several times, right? So when I click on it, I will see what is the threshold that I have set in my custom alert and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the custom alert part of it. Now I want to take you back to the security center for a second. And here is where you would be able to see all the security alerts related to the IoT devices. Either you can view it at the IoT Hub itself, or you could come here to the security center in order to know more details of what was the attacking IP and what is the state of the attack. Is it already in the execution, or is it just the initial attack, and all that, the phases that that we have in cyberkill chain. And then under the recommendations perspective, if you want to see how much score is contributing towards your security of your IoT devices, you should be able to see it when you search under the recommendation side of it. So if you see there are open ports on my device, which is contributing to the 6% of my overall security score. And I haven't enabled diagnostic logs in my IoT Hub, which is contributing to the 2%. So like 8%, I could easily get 8% of the score to my overall score by just taking care of these recommendations. Okay. Now going back to my IoT Hub section, I have IoT Edge. I wanted to take you to the modules that I have already installed. So I've installed a simulated temperature module, just so that I want to see the simulated sensor is monitoring both a machine and the environment around the machine. So for example, the sensor might be in the server room or from the factory. So I want to see the messages that's being sent from the temperature sensor module to the cloud. So which is why I've installed this, just to show the demo. Now, if I log into my party and I copy the IP address of my IoT Edge, and so while I'm here, let me simulate the failed logins alert that I have already set up, right? I will try to enter wrong password for my IoT Edge. So basically, I'm trying to hack my IoT Edge. You'll notice how Azure Defender for IoT catches this alert in a fraction of seconds. Okay. Enter my right password and get into my IoT Edge. Okay. In a second, I'll take you to the alert section to show you the alert that might have created because of what the operation that I did earlier, right? But before that, I want to show you what are all the things that I have already installed on my IoT Edge. So if I want to confirm if the IoT Edge is installed and the IoT Hub is connected to the IoT Edge, I'm going to run sudo IoT Edge command and list of the devices that I have. So my IoT Edge is connected to the IoT Hub with the security module, and which is actively running with no errors. Right. Now, if I want to see the messages that's being sent from the temperature sensor, I could use the docker logs command, in order to see simulated temperature sensor. So this is case sensitive. So, sorry. Sudo docker logs simulated sensor. So this is the messages that's sending from my IoT Edge to the IoT Hub. Let me expand this for a second. And if I scroll up a bit, I just want to show you a message that I had configured. Okay, so this is a command that I executed. So it initialized the simulated sensor temperature, and I have set it as to send only 500 messages at an interval of 5 seconds. This is a policy that I have set, so which is why it's not sending more than 500 messages. Now, if I want to change this policy, I have an option to go to the environmental variable under my device itself and change the settings. So at the end of it, you will be seeing a message called done sending 500 messages. Okay, now I just want to get out of here and show you the attack that Defender for IoT might have got because I tried to attack my IoT Edge device. Okay, so like you see, this is the recent attack that just came in now. Now, if I scroll down and see more about it, in the intent of the attack will give me more information of what was trying to happen. So this it gives me more information and good information, like it was trying to do the credential access and the IoT Edge, from where source address it's coming and what is the username and so on and so forth. So it's this easy to monitor your IoT Hub devices and all the devices that you connect to your IoT Hub with the help of Azure Defender for IoT. I hope this was useful. Now, I want to pass it over to my excellent colleague, Innocent, who will walk us through investigating alerts via Azure Sentinel and more. Over to you, Innocent.
Yes, thank you very much, Safina, for that great overview and demo of Azure Defender for IoT and how it is helping to enhance the security posture of our customers' IoT environments. So now, let us look at how Azure Defender for IoT tightly integrates with Azure Sentinel, our cloud-native SIEM and SOAR solution, powered by AI and machine learning to give you that greater visibility across your environments, be they hybrid, multi-cloud, IT, and now also OT. I believe you'd agree with me if I say that the threat landscape today is constantly evolving and increasing in complexity. And when we look at the field, we see that organizations that have multiple and disconnected security solutions tend to struggle when it comes to staying on top of these evolving threats. And this is mainly because these disparate systems are not necessarily talking to each other directly. They collect and analyze this security data in silos, contributing even further to the ultra-familiar problem of alert fatigue. So what is Microsoft doing to help alleviate this problem? Now, we are bringing together advanced defense and detection capabilities under one umbrella to provide you with coverage for the key assets that you typically care about. That's ranging all the way from SQL DBs, VMs, containers, applications, network traffic, and IoT environments. Now, the benefit that you get from this tight integration of the combined power of our threat defense stack and Azure Sentinel is that the detections are now faster and the false positives are fewer. All right, let us now go into the demo, but before we do so, let us set the context under which we shall be running the demo today. Now, we have an organization called Contoso, not surprisingly, and we are getting ready to deploy a bunch of new devices into production. And what we want to do is to have that assurance that these devices are safe, are secure, and don't have any loopholes that could be taken advantage of. We hear a lot about the kinds of devastating attacks that have happened in the past, the Mirai botnet attack, the Las Vegas fish tank, and the incident that came out of that. So we don't want this to happen to us. So what we are going to be doing is that we'll have our ethical hacker testing our devices, obviously doing some attacks against these devices, and we will need to expose these devices to a limited but controlled extent to the internet so that we can get a full view of the testing. This, unfortunately, will also expose our devices to the attention of some not so ethical hackers as well, who will be hacking at our devices, but for different reasons. Now, we have our SOC running 24/7, of course, and we do not want to burden our analysts by chasing incidents that really are benign, so incidents that are coming from the activity of our ethical hacker. Now, to do this, we are going to build a watch list, which is a new and cool feature within Azure Sentinel that enables us to build this high fidelity correlation data source that we can compare with alert data. And using that, we'll be able to do some automation using playbooks to automatically close any incidents that are related to the activity of our ethical hacker. But should the converse happen, meaning we have some activity coming from nefarious individuals, then we would automatically raise the severity of that incident and then send out an email to the SOC team so that they can give it the attention it deserves. Okay, so to run this demo, we will need to enable and configure a couple of features within Azure Sentinel. Of course, we want to detect, but before you detect, you must collect. So we'll do exactly that by connecting Azure Security Center for IoT to Azure Sentinel, and then we will enable a built-in analytic rule which will look at these alerts that are coming from the Azure Security Center side, pipe them into Sentinel, make sense of them, and if the criteria qualifies, incidents will be generated, and then we'll go right ahead and excuse me, investigate these incidents. Then what we'll do is we'll run a playbook against the incidents, one or two of them, so we see how this playbook of ours is going to do the magic to make that distinction between benign and nefarious activity. We will then close by looking at a workbook that helps us to see all the alert data put together in one nice visualization that gives us ideas of how we can consistently improve our security posture. Okay, so we will switch over to the demo now. Pull up here my Azure Sentinel landing page, and then we'll scroll down here to the data connectors blade. And this pulls up on the right here the connectors that we have available. At the moment, we have 61 of them. And this is really where the value starts coming in, because now with all these data sources, if you select the ones that are relevant to your scenario, you do have now this ability to have additional correlation sources, because the more data sources you have and the more relevant they are, then you start to reduce those false positives and get better detections. So in our case, what we want to do here is to enable the Azure Security Center for IoT connector. I'll select it over here, then go to the bottom right corner here, select Open Connector. We'll scroll down, and then we'll get the option here to connect the various IoT hubs I have to Sentinel. I'll pick this one. As you can see, with one click of a button, that connects Azure Security Center for IoT to Sentinel. And then within 5 minutes or so, you should see this graph here dancing up and down. And that is evidence that data is flowing in from Azure Security Center for IoT into Sentinel. You will also see on the top left corner here, this green bar lighting up, and meaning that the connection state is healthy and data is flowing in. So back to our blades over here, and next up we are going to go to the analytics blade and configure a rule that will be able to pick up the alerts and generate the incidents. I'll go here to the templates, and because I know that my rule has the word IoT within it, so I type that and it quickly brings it up for me. And then all I need to do is to scroll down to the bottom right here, click create rule. That will give me these options that are resulting here. I can change the name if I want. I'll leave it as it is for the moment. I can also, of course, enable or disable the rule. Obviously, we want to keep it enabled at this time. And then I have more options here to do some filtering. And this is all in the spirit of trying to reduce the number of incidents that are generated. So I can filter by high, medium, low, or informational. In our case, I'm going to leave it at any. And then further down here, we have more options again that are designed to help you reduce the number of incidents that are created. And now here you can limit this by creating incidents from alerts that contain a specific text within the alert name, or you can do the opposite here by creating incidents from alerts that do not contain a certain specific text within the alert name. So next is just to review and see whether the stuff that or the settings you selected in the previous step, if you are okay with them, and if that be the case, just click create, and that will go ahead and create our rule. Now let us look at our watch list. So as I say, it's a new feature that just come into Azure Sentinel and really provides you with that high fidelity data source for correlation. It's very fast to query, it's always in memory, and can really give you a good solution and you're trying to reduce those false positives and stuff like that. So in our case, what we are going to do is that we built a watch list, and this watch list contains a username and device ID pair. And what we are trying to do is we want to identify the activity that is coming from our ethical hacker. So if that's the case, we want to automatically close that incident, add a comment to it, say why we did what we did. And then if it is the opposite, so it's nefarious activity, we want to raise the severity of that incident and then send out an email. Now, to see the contents of my watch list, I will click View in Log Analytics here. Obviously, this is potentially sensitive information, so if you're wondering where I'm getting the courage to show it here live, we had actually changed these contents just before we went live, so it's no longer any good in case someone's thinking of using it. So there's the contents of our watch list. You see the username column here, then you see the device. Okay, so let us now go and look at what incidents have been generated so far. So we go to our incident page here, and I'm gonna dial back 14 days here. As you can see, there has been quite a number of incidents generated already. So I'm going to click on this particular one here, then investigate it. I'm going to scroll down on the bottom right corner here, click investigate. And that will pull up our investigation experience, which if you're using Sentinel already, you'll be familiar with it. Nothing different here. So you have the original alert over here, then you have the entities that are related to it. This is our IoT device. If I hover on top of it, I get that option to look at more related alerts. So it will pull those up automatically for me. But I want to focus on the playbook. So I'll select the timeline over here, select the incident, click on the info button here, then I get that option to see the details of the incident in text form. I'm going to go now and click on the view playbooks. So it shows me what playbooks I have within my environment that I can use for orchestration. So this is the one that we are going to use. So what I'm going to do is kick it off here. It will run in the background. And as that happens, I'm going to open it up, go into edit mode, so we can see the structure of how it's built and how it's helping to reduce those false positives. So obviously it is triggered by an Azure Sentinel alert, and then we now connect to the workspace and we run this KQL query against the workspace. And what we are doing here is that we are now extracting the device ID and username and then comparing that to what we have in our watch list. And remember, if we have the condition whereby it turns out that there is a match between our query up there and the contents of our watch list, then it likely means that this is activity coming from the work of our ethical hacker, in which case we just want to close the incident, specify the reason as being a benign positive, and then adding this text here that says username and device ID matched in the watch list. If the opposite case arises, what we want to do is to change the severity of that incident. These details here are just to make sure you're connecting to the right subscription, right resource group, and so on. So first thing we do here is we change that severity, we elevate it to high, we extract the incident number because we want to use it further down to include it in the email that we'll send to our SOC analysts. And we also add a comment down here that says username and device ID do not match in watch list. We'll then send out that email. As you can see, it takes advantage of those variables we've extracted up there, adds it to the subject line, adds it to the body of the message. So it becomes very easy for the analyst to see quickly what incident am I dealing with, what incident should I go for right away. So with that done, we should then have this email being sent out in our first case. So it's a sample email that has been sent out by the playbook. You can see the details look familiar from what we've just seen in the playbook. The incident is specified and the body here says what has happened to that incident. So let us now go back to our Sentinel page, landing page here, and go to the incidents and see what actually happened when the playbook ran. So I'm going to filter here by severity. So we see the first case, what kind of orchestration happened. So I select severity high there. I select the one sample incident. I go over here to the right, and if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I see indeed that the severity was adjusted, and a comment has been added saying username and device ID do not match in the watch list. So that was the orchestration that happened there. I can also now look at the other possibilities. So let's deselect these filters here. Then go and check for closed incidents, because if indeed we had a qualification of an incident that may represent benign activity, then we should have an incident being closed and the comments being put in there. So we see indeed this one is closed. The reason for closing is specified as benign, positive, suspicious, but expected, and then the username and device ID did match in the watch list. So now let us go and look at our workbook. So we have one saved here, Azure Security Center for IoT Alerts. I'm going to pull it up here and then also dial back 14 days ago, so we have more data. And as you can see, the moment we turned on our demo environment, attackers quickly got to work and started coming at our devices. And this is a summary of alerts that were recognized across time. Then further down here, we see the distribution of those alerts per IoT Hub, total right here, and then the distribution across high, medium, or low severity. Then here you've got a good summary of the top 10 alert types, and this could be useful in terms of adjusting your posture and your strategy. So if you see that you're getting a lot of this particular type of alerts, it could mean that you need to bolster your defenses more around that area. So that's some value you can get from that particular piece of the workbook. And then down here, you get a summary of the specific IoT devices. And then further down here on the bottom right, we have a summary of how the alerts are trending across time in terms of increase and decrease relative to a previous period. So that brings us to the end of our demo. And as we come here to a close, we just want to recap on what we covered today. So we did look at how Azure Defender for IoT and Azure Sentinel tightly integrate to provide you with that end-to-end security solution for both IT and OT environments. And then you saw just how easy it is to connect Azure Defender for IoT to Azure Sentinel. So this is what we'd really highly recommend that you do in terms of taking defensive actions today. Number one, enable Azure Defender for IoT. Download the OT aware sensor if you do have an OT environment, and then start protecting your IT and OT assets. And then integrate that with Azure Sentinel so that you can get this richer threat detection, investigation, and response experience driven by AI and machine learning, reasoning over signals drawn from multiple data sources to further reduce those false positives. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. Really thankful that you could join us. We will stick around for a bit and monitor the chat window for any questions. Other than that, it's goodbye from us and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you, Innocent and Safina. The team did a great job answering all the questions that came in. There's one question that Riyadh was wondering about, if there's any certification or perhaps training regarding the Microsoft IoT products. So if any of you have that answer, that would be great to share. If not, maybe some links or some guidance. Anything on that?
There is definitely a certification for Microsoft IoT. I can share that information with Riyadh.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just some reminders before ending the call. As Safina mentioned, we have many webinars coming our way, at least plenty of them before this year ends, and we're working on the pipeline for the 2021. So please visit us at the aka.ms/security webinars. And in case we missed to answer your question, or in fact, if you have additional questions, you can visit us on our Azure Security Center. That is aka.ms/ASC community. I know we covered Sentinel part as well, but it is okay if you raise a question for two products in there. We'll be able to divert to the different teams. And I would like to close this webinar by thanking Safina and Innocent for an awesome presentation. Thank you, guys. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.